Well, we want to bring in our first guest. He's been on hold, and we don't want to keep him too long. He's a busy man. He's fortunate he's not up in the Northeast. He's down in Texas, Don, but he probably wasn't too happy with what happened yesterday in the football world. We're going to be joined now by author Nick Patoski. He's written a good book about the Dallas Cowboys called The Dallas Cowboys, The Outrageous History of the Biggest, Loudest, Most Hated, Best-Loved Football Team in America. Nick Patoski joined us by telephone tonight. Joe, thanks for being with us. How are you tonight?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm doing okay, all things considered. I'm still kind of healing and trying to figure out what happened yesterday and take a pause and contemplate the Romo coaster that I saw on TV yesterday. Gosh, I mean, you want to give it up and throw in the towel at the half, and then they start looking good. They have a great third quarter, and the papers have been saying here it would have been the greatest comeback in the history of the franchise, but once again, defeat was snatched from the jaws of victory. And, man, it hurts.
Well, as I said earlier when we chatted, Joe, that, Manning has been very, very successful at the new Texas Stadium, and he's now 4 for 4 on the road down there. They lost the first game of the season at home at Giants Stadium, but they made up for it yesterday, and what a seesaw battle back and forth in that second half.
Well, I've got to say this for the Dallas Cowboys. They do keep you entertained. And I think that's what drives the fans in this area so crazy is if you're loyal, you've got every reason to be kind of mad about the way things have turned out for the last 15 years, but you still want to believe. And I saw flashes. I was seeing Roger Staubach for a second. I thought I saw Don Meredith out there, and it really brought back the old heart attack Cowboys. But they're supposed to give the other team the heart attack. They're not supposed to give their own fans the heart attacks, and it's really frustrating. But it really fits into this book that I've written that I covered the entire history. And if you look at the history of this team from 1960, when they started as an expansion franchise, to the present, it really is the story of the NFL. I mean, this is the model franchise for better or for worse. And today it's, the most valuable franchise in American sports. At the start of the season, they were the most popular team in the NFL. And, of course, anyone that feels that way is tearing their hair out right now. And I'm wondering if this is the end of a long, rich history and legacy that it's been finally run into the ground.
Well, Joe, I had a chance to read it. I'm almost done. I'm up to page 650. It's a great history of the Cowboys, like you said, from day one back in 1960 through the early years, where Tom Landry was hired from the New York Giants as its first coach. Talk about Dandy Don, and through those kind of tumultuous years where they kept getting close. Of course, the Ice Bowl game, and never could really get over the hump. And then the quarterback controversies you had with Roger Staubach and Craig Morton. It always has been kind of a soap opera with the team, hasn't it?
It always has. And you know what's interesting? Today we talk about the NFL. What are the storylines of the week? I mean, this is second nature. And the Cowboys were doing storylines before there were storylines. I mean, I go back and think about when they got Bullet Bob Hayes from Florida A&M and what a big deal that was, and a track star playing football. People thought this was crazy. But they really have entertained all the way through. And I like to point out, Don Meredith was not just a really cool guy and a really exciting quarterback, even though he didn't win a Super Bowl. He came as close as anyone could. But during the 70s, when Monday Night Football, before cable television, was the most watched event every week on television, every time he opened his mouth up and talked, he was selling the Dallas Cowboys. And of course, I was doing that last night. I was singing "Turn Out the Lights, the Party's Over" a little bit too quick. But there really is a reason why they stand out in the crowd, and that they're not like most other franchises. And that's all the way up to their current owner, general manager, Jerry Jones, who, unfortunately to me, for someone that's been watching Dallas as long as I have, it's not a good thing when the owner is the best-known personality of your franchise. And anyone that followed the New York Yankees under George Steinbrenner knows exactly what I'm talking about. It really takes away from the core. If this is a business, your core product is that football team on the field. The Cowboys do everything else right. They do have the most fabulous football stadium that could be imagined. They've got the best-looking cheerleaders who look wonderful in HD on that big screen. They just don't have a very good core product, and that's a winning football team. And the owner won't fire the general manager.
I was going to say, the one difference between the Cowboys from the early days, 1960, right on up, they had the president, the general manager, and the coach that were three of the best in the business. Jerry Jones has been a great, great merchandiser. No one merchandised better than Jerry Jones. But unfortunately, he forgot one thing. You have to have somebody in the office and scouting system that brings you the best players and then also puts it together on the field and wins. And the way he changes coaches, the way he changes personality, the way he drafts. I mean, it's going to be very, very tough to compete with the teams that are winning.
Look, you're singing to the choir on that one. And the thing is, what's frustrating, a lot of people that go back to 1989 when he bought the team, fired Tom Landry, and cleaned house. But, you know, anyone that remembers that will not forgive and forget. And the thing is, when he came aboard, he said, I'm a socks and jocks guy. He and Jimmy Johnson were on the Arkansas Razorbacks team that won the national championship in 1964, and that pair were incomparable. I mean, they got results. The problem was when these two egos, Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones, couldn't get along, and they got that divorce at the end of in early 1994. Jimmy's couldn't win with the Dolphins. Jerry's never been successful with all the string of coaches he's had. Barry Switzer won that last Super Bowl with Jimmy Johnson's talent. So it really is a matter, and what he doesn't seem to realize is how complicated this business is, and you need a football guy being general manager. You need a Tex Schramm again that's not having to worry about being an owner, and vice versa. And Jerry's been a great owner, and he's been a horrible general manager, and he won't fire himself.
So, hey, recount. Go ahead, Don.
It's got people in Texas pretty crazy. Now, then again, if you live around the Houston area, you're not minding this at all because you know you have the best football team, NFL team in Texas right now.
I was going to say you recount very well in the book the whole situation of how they handled the Tom Landry firing, which I remember at the time was really bungled, and I think Jerry Jones did later on say he wished he handled it better, but you really got into some detail there I didn't even know about how poorly the whole thing was handled with Landry.
Well, it was a PR debacle, and Jerry even said today, he was interviewed on the radio, and he said, fans have been on me since I got here. And he's right, because if you find fans of a certain age that remember this, I don't care if he won five more, the next 5 Super Bowls. They're never going to forgive him for the way that he fired Landry, who at the time was the only coach that the Cowboys ever had. And I did have, in writing that, the fans were on Landry. They wanted him fired. But here, the way Jerry did it is why people will never forgive and forget. And it's contentious. You have a fan base that's held hostage by an ego that's off this planet.
Well, it's a little bit like General MacArthur. Close proximity.
Yeah, but I don't think the commissioner is going to come in and tell Jones you got to leave the league or anything like that. No, the best hope that Cowboys fans have right now is Stephen Jones has it's a family business, and Jerry has basically worked very hard to make this franchise like the Maras owning the Giants or the Rooneys and the Steelers and now the Krafts in New England. And I think Stephen Jones, his oldest son, is a real smart guy, does not have his dad's ego. And my hope is when the reins are turned over that Stephen will hire a football-first, football-specific general manager, and greatness can return to this franchise that it really does deserve it. They've got a hungry fan base, but they're getting real turned off right now. And of course, they're the most hated team, too, so there is a big element of NFL fans that are rejoicing right now. But I don't like seeing what I'm seeing. I don't like having to turn on the TV.
Talking with Joe Nick Patoski, author of the Dallas Cowboys, great history of that. What became America's team, I guess that term, as you describe in the book, Joe, basically from the 70s when I remember growing up in New York, there was always the afternoon game, and when they weren't playing the Giants, there was always like the late game you saw, the Cowboys, and of course Pat Summerall and either Tom Brookshire or John Madden would do the game with Summerall, the national game, and you know, you had Landry on the sideline with the hat. I mean, they had that great image. I mean, I guess that's where it came from, right?
It did. It was really Bob Ryan at NFL Films. Every year, you know, the Sables did their kind of, every team had their own film. And Ryan said when he was putting together all the footage, he noticed at all the visiting stadiums there sure was more Cowboys merch than he saw, you know, when other teams were visiting stadiums. And he says that that's what put the bee in his bonnet. Let's call it America's team. And this speaks of how Schramm was a pretty smart promoter. Is that's the official story. And I talked to Bob Ryan, and he confirmed it. But then I talked to Joe Bailey, who is Tex Schramm's number 2, his right-hand man, and was his heir apparent as general manager. And he said that Doug Todd, the team publicist, and Bailey, on their way to go visit Ryan while they're going to watch footage before this, you know, they put together the end of the year film, they talked about why not America's team. And they like to think they put the idea into Ryan's head and then definitely stepped away. They didn't want to take credit for it. And it dawned on me the other day, that's kind of the polar opposite. Jones would take all the credit he could if he came up with the phrase. I mean, look, you're talking about a guy when the TV captured him in the luxury box, and his son-in-law was grabbing his glasses and cleaning them. The next week, you had Jerry Wipes, a brand new eyeglass cleaning product. This just happened this season, and you have the first stadium to have a Victoria's Secret. Folks, what does this have to do with football?
How far away, Joe, is do you think the transition is between Steve and Jerry? Because Jerry doesn't look like he wants to give up the reins at all right now.
No, and Jerry's in very good health, but I think this season, if it's 500 or less, is going to drive him to move quicker than he thought he'd move. And I really think it's just he's not going to pay attention until there's a lot of empty seats in Cowboys Stadium. And that hadn't happened yet, but the news is going to wear off of that, and I think it's got a year or two, maybe more, before, you know, people just quit paying money just to go see the eighth wonder of the world or whatever you want to call it. It really is spectacular, even if there's not a football game going on there. But after that newness wears off, and I know right now they were saying that the biggest drop in viewership since the start of the season in the NFL has been Dallas, as far as TV audience. And that the fans are, the vibe is, what can we do? And then it's always, they work their way up to the top, and then they say, there's Jerry, and what can you do about that? Nothing. So I don't know that there can be a boycott or anything like that, but I think there's going to be limited returns. You want to go see entertainment, great. But it really is, entertainment's only as good as your core product. And in this case, a good CEO like Jerry Jones should know the core product's not in very good shape right now. And if he can't fix it, as he's tried to fix it for the last 15 years, he needs to get someone in that can fix it. We're talking about a team that is now, 123 and 124 record since 1997. And yet they're still in the conversation. That's all the credit in the world to the owner, but it's also all on the general manager.
What's the pay scale at the new stadium?
The pay scale is it's let me hold your wallet. You walk inside there. You know, the thing is and I loved writing in the book that back in 1971 when Texas Stadium in Irving was built, that was as radical a stadium for the reason that it was built specifically for football. It wasn't a multi-purpose stadium like Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia or Old Shea Stadium in New York. It was specifically for football, and it was with that hole in the roof and that design. It was really made for TV, but just as important, it was the first football stadium loaded with luxury boxes, and it was the first stadium where personal seat licenses were sold. In other words, buying your season tickets wasn't enough. You had to pay your premium. Everybody's doing that now. So that was radical then, and people were complaining we're losing the blue-collar fans moving from the Cotton Bowl. And they were complaining about that when they moved from Texas Stadium to Irving. And the cost is such that you need to know someone that's at a corporation that's got some tickets, or someone that works at a law firm or at a bank. For bad end zone tickets, I struggled to find anything cheaper than $150, and they weren't good seats, and $9 beers, and not really my favorite brand. And by the way, that brand is the official brand of the Dallas Cowboys. It's not the official brand of the NFL. I mean, this is where Jerry making his own deals. You can't turn the corner without spending money there. And kind of the one thing that really is sunk in with me is there's more commercials in that stadium on that big screen than there are if you watch it on TV at home. And it really is. That stadium is a triumph of TV because, everybody talked about Texas Stadium had the hole in the roof so God could watch his favorite team. Well, Cowboy Stadium, you look at all the cutaway camera shots at the players and the coaches, they're all looking to a higher power. And that higher power is not God, it's television. And no one watches the field anymore. Everybody's watching that screen. I paid $150 a ticket to sit in the end zone and watch TV. Now, that is some kind of brilliance from a businessman. He got me to part with my money that way.
Not to interrupt you, but it's very interesting. Yesterday, during the course of your point is well taken. For those people that watched the game yesterday, there were several shots of the Dallas Cowboy bench and also the Giant bench, and you're exactly right. All the way down the sidelines, nobody looked at the field. Everybody was looking up at TV.
It's bizarre, but that's where I kind of conclude with talking about the NFL as television sport and really entertainment. That what was it? 18 of the last of the top 20 rated programs on American television last year, 2011, were NFL games, and I guess it's cheaper than reality TV. We all watch it. And that's really what the sport's about. The stadium experience, at least in the case of Cowboys Stadium, is it's kind of a corporate it's a corporate party. If you know someone at a corporation or your company's going to give out some tickets, you'll go see a game. The best way to go watch a football game there, and I've been doing it for the last 3 years, is the state high school football championships are played there. So instead of paying close to $100 to park near the stadium, you pay $10, and you get really good seats that would be like seats on the 40-yard line, which would probably cost between $750 and $1,000, or $10. So you get to watch all the state high school champions duke it out, and it's cheap. So I had a much better time at those games without having to worry about my wallet. And I'm just a consumer. I mean, look, it's a different experience. I get a media pass. You're wined and dined and treated like a king. But the fact is, regular fans can only do this every once in a while. I don't think, unless you're loaded, you can't afford a season ticket for you and someone else, or much less your whole family. So that part of the sport troubles me, but it's also it really speaks to the fact how most of us consume it on television now anyhow. And it's better. I mean, the camera work, everything. It's climate controlled, and if you don't like the price of the beer in the stadium, who cares? You got the beer in your refrigerator, and you got your favorite brand.
Well, Joe, I know we kept you a little longer than we thought, but we could talk Dallas Cowboys and football all night. Again, the name of the book is The Dallas Cowboys, The Outrageous History of the Biggest, Loudest, Most Hated, Best Loved Football Team in America, and just came out a couple of weeks ago, doing well, I understand. And, Joe, you have a website that we get a hold of you or the book?
I sure do. It's Joe Nick P, JoeNickP, as in potato, because I'm not going to try to fool people with Patoski. So JoeNickP.com. I'm easy to find. I've got all my reviews of the book and how to find the book and how to talk to me. And if y'all read it and you want to talk back at me, I love hearing from people whether they think I got it right or wrong. But I stand behind my work, and I'm real proud of it. So thank you all for letting me come on and talk about it.
One last
go
question,
Cowboys.
Joe. What's your biggest highlight in the book? What's the one thing, looking at it from 1960 until 2012, what's the one thing that stands out to you?
My favorite positive is 1971 when Dwayne Thomas ran wild and carried the team into the Super Bowl. A bad boy that caused trouble for the team. And I guess my other favorite part is the transition when Jerry Jones came to Dallas and changed the nature of the NFL.
Well, that was the time that Tom Brookshire, he wouldn't talk to Tom on TV in the locker room after that game. But so it's very significant in the Philadelphia area, I'll tell you that.
No, and I remember that watching it as a kid on TV and how, Brookshire was just starting in broadcasting, and we know he's a legend. I mean, he's great, but that coming up against the silent Dwayne was one of the great TV moments in sports, I think.
It was.
Assisted by Jim Brown.
Remember it.
Yeah, I remember it really well. But you know what? At the end, Dwayne Thomas was just misunderstood, and the only way he knew how to deal with media was just shut up and go play ball. And for one season at least, he did a pretty dang good job.
Doug?
Joe, appreciate you taking a few minutes to be with us tonight. We'll do it again down the road, and the book's doing well, and I read through most of it. I'll finish it up this week, but great job on it. Even though I'm a Giant fan, I still enjoy reading about the Cowboys.
I respect the heck out of the Giants. Without the Giants, we wouldn't be talking about the Cowboys.
That's
Y'all
right.
give me a holler back, and let's visit again.
Good.
Okay, Joe. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye.